I know already that I will never stop thinking about the women profiled in this story, about their sexual desire, their emotional pain, their strength, their losses. I saw myself in all of them. Truly, 3 women is an extraordinary offering. So you're in for something special tonight. Please join me in welcoming to the stage Lisa Taddeo and Katie Couric.
Thank you, Chelsea. Hi, everyone. Hi, ladies, and a few brave men. You embarked on this journey to find women, to talk candidly and really openly and intimately about their desire. So how does one go about recruiting people for that job?
So it was extraordinarily difficult. That is what took the balance, the largest part of the 8 years. I drove across the country 6 times. I posted these desire flyers. Nobody actually came from the flyers, so that was difficult. But one of the things I did after maybe like a year and a half in, or maybe a little bit less than that, I moved out of New York and I moved to Indiana.
You wanted to be close to the Kinsey Institute?
Yeah, so that was one of the reasons. And on also one of the cross-country trips, I met this doctor who was working with the Kinsey Institute, but was also doing these hormone treatments. So he told me on one of those trips that there were several women that he thought might be interested in talking to me, and nobody up until that point. Like, people talked to me, but, there's a difference between talking about sex and talking about the emotions behind it. And I started this discussion group, and a couple of women came the first time, and then it kind of grew.
And that's where you met Lena, right?
Yes. So Lena is a suburban housewife in Indiana who, when I met her, walked into the conference room and said that her husband no longer wanted to kiss her on the mouth and that the sensation offended him. And their couples therapist said, that's okay. The way that you feel about wet wool is the way your husband feels about kissing you on the mouth. And that was just, it was horrifying. And then the second thing that was happening is she had just reconnected with her high school boyfriend, with whom she had always been wildly obsessed. And they, reconnected on Facebook, and she was about to meet him. So just the notion that this situation was unfolding in real time, and also so compelling, and she was such a real person, and to date, nobody has given me as much as she did.
What about some of the other people you spoke to? There were, I think I read, Lisa, there were 20 maybe in all, or
there were 30 in depth.
30 in depth.
Yeah, and I moved to several of their towns, so it was my hope to have as wide-ranging cross section of people as I could. And at the beginning, it was men, it was I wanted transgendered, I wanted a wide range, and I had a wide range in the first 30 or so that I had. But ultimately, these 3 stories, and it's called 3 women, but I wasn't even trying to choose 3 women. I was trying to find people who would give me this level of access. And I did not, there were several people closer to the end who gave me a lot of access and were, of different races and different sexual predilections. But these 3 were just, it was shocking how much they gave me in comparison to everyone else. And I think it has nothing to do with any one specific thing. I think it was just like a moment in time and a place in their lives, and me coming in at a certain moment that made sense for everything.
I think someone had said that you didn't really deal with the Me Too movement in this book, but I actually believe you really did in many ways. You were really dealing with the seeds and the backdrop of how this came to be, and really sort of what has been bubbling beneath the surface for all these years that then sort of erupted like a volcano. And I think in many ways that was Maggie's story and the injustice that she had to deal with.
Completely. I think that, I wrote and researched most of the book before Me Too. And I think that Maggie's story would have gone differently post Me Too, but at the same time, I don't know that it would have, because it was North Dakota. I spoke to many people close to the trial off the record who kind of made it clear that it might not have. And, a lot of the Me Too of it is important, but it's vital. But the idea that we can talk about what we don't want as women, but we can't talk about what we do want. And there's still a restriction on what we can do. And I think that's something I was focusing on. I wanted to talk about not what female desire as a whole was, but I wanted to describe, it ended up being 3, but I wanted to describe a couple of stories very granular
and intimately.
Yes.
Yes.
But the other thing I think is, and I think it's the commonality between all 3 women, is that they were all so wildly judged by everybody in their communities. And, that is something that stuck out to me. It almost became more intriguing to me than, not more intriguing to me, but it became as intriguing to me as the women's narratives themselves, was this culture of shame. And the way that we often, not just women, but anyone, we project our own shame onto others. And I just saw that happening time and again with almost everybody I spoke to. But with these 3 women, it was really wildly trenchant.